Hey guys, so welcome to my workshop. So, when you're putting in a door or you're putting in a window, you always end up having to buy a box of these really inexpensive shims. And what I'm thinking, every time I buy that, I'm thinking, that is such a waste. It's a money racket, $2, and you're getting this bundle of scrap wood, essentially. And when you cut things in your workshop, you get tons of scrap. So I'm thinking, we got to figure out a way to make shims out of these scraps. So this is a store-bought shim. This is a homemade shim. And so to make that, I've come up with this really cool jig. All you got to do is run it through your table saw with a block of wood in there. Just keep going and you got yourself a really good shim. So stick around, I'll show you how to make one of these. Okay, so before we begin, I want to talk about a couple characteristics of shims. When you're making shims, you want to make sure that you use a softwood. If you choose to use a hardwood, you're going to defeat the purpose of the shim, because what you're supposed to do is you put your shim in where you're supposed to put it, and then you just snap off the extra, or you can chip it off with a hand chisel. If you use hardwood, you're going to have a hard time doing that, and you're really not gaining anything from it, especially since you're using scrap. And I will say, if you have scrap hardwood that you want to use, by all means, you can do it. You're just going to give yourself a little bit more work, because you might have to use a saw to cut it instead of just a hammer and snapping it, because you might end up causing more damage than you really want to. Another thing is that most shims are 8 inches long. There is a variation on that. You can buy some long ones that are maybe 12 or even 14 that I've seen before, but your generic size is 8 inches long. And then what usually happens is it tapers down to about 1/16 of an inch, and it goes up to 1/4 inch or even 5/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is basically do those measurements. I'm going to go from 1/16 of an inch to 5/8 of an inch, and it's going to be 8 inches long. So first you're going to want to start with 2 pieces of wood. You want to cut a 2x4 12 inches long and a 1x4 12 inches long. If you can't get exactly 12, you really want to stay maybe 11, but you don't want to go smaller, and you'll see why later on, because it will actually create a problem with you with your table saw. So once you cut those 2 pieces, what we're going to do is just go ahead and set this one aside. We don't need it quite yet, but we're going to run this through the table saw. And what we're going to do is just get rid of the rounded corner. If you don't have a rounded corner, then you don't need to worry about it, but most of the stock studs that you buy at the store already have a little bit of a round over on or a chamfer on these edges. So we're going to go ahead and cut both of them off, so essentially the board is going to end up more like 3 inches wide. Alright, now with the ends trimmed off, what we're going to do is go on one of the sides. It really doesn't matter, you pick whichever side you want, and keep in mind we're going with 12 inches, so we're going to use a ruler, and we're going to measure 2 inches from each side. That'll give us an 8-inch gap in the middle. Use our square line. Once again, a little tip when you're making your lines, to make them exact. A good way, if you're not used to your measuring devices, how far you want to have your pencil, make sure your pencil's sharp. Put your pencil on the mark you just made and bring your measuring device up to it, and then go back and forth, and you'll have a perfect line every time. Now we do want to continue this on both sides just a little bit. Alright, we got those lines marked. Now the next step is to determine which side you want to use to have the shim. Now if you look at these shims, one is bigger than the other side. We said this is a 1/16 of an inch, we got a 5/8 of an inch. So what we're going to do is take our measuring device and measure 5/8 of an inch on one side, put a mark, and then 1/16 of an inch on the other. Now your 1/16 of an inch, you may want to go slightly bigger, almost 1/8 of an inch. You don't want it to be too narrow to where you're almost going to have nothing left, because then you just won't really benefit from having a thicker beginning, because usually you're not going to have to go thinner than that. So then we want to go to both lines, try to make the best line you can, and mark that. Now you can go ahead and cut it from here, but what I like to do is mark it on the other side as well. So we've got the large side here, we want to make sure we maintain that all the way around. And the reason why I do that is because if I choose to flip it when I'm getting ready to cut it, I don't have to come back and mark it up again. And also when I'm done, I can check to see how square my cut was. Okay, now we'll move over to the bandsaw. So now we'll just take it to our vise, set it in there, and using a rasp or you can even take a block of wood, put some abrasive sandpaper on there. Just want to clean it up a little. Okay, with this done, we're going to just go ahead and set that aside now. So right now we've just got the actual main part of the jig, the top of this piece here. Now we're going to make a little handle, and the reason for that is on my prototype I did not put a handle, and so I was pushing at the very end. And to be honest, that's not the safest, because when you get to the end, your blade is going to be right there. So ideally, it'd be good to have a handle, something you can push like this or like this. I'm going to make a little block that I can push with my palm. That way I'm exerting all the pressure this way, and I've got my hand on the other piece that I'm running through the table saw. And you'll see that and understand that more once we get to demonstrate this with you. But we're going to make a handle, and so to make the handle, I'm going to take a piece of the wood that I used to make this. I'm just going to make a simple, basically a shim, an oversized version of a shim. So I'm going to go about 4 inches, and this is just something big enough for my palm to hit. So we're going to go with maybe about a 1/2 inch up. Let's say we'll go about 1 inch and let's go with 1.5 inches. Come out about another inch. We'll score that. And then we'll go ahead and cut this piece out. Voila. So here's the handle we just created. The way this is going to work, this board acts as the top block, and that's going to keep the other board inside. So I'll give you an example of what's going to happen. You're going to cut a piece of 2x4, or take your scrap board that is 8 inches wide. You want to cut it down to 8. What it's going to do, I've already used this before, but it fits into the slot that we've cut. And then this board is going to hold that down as you run it through the saw. So what we want to do is put this on the top like that, but what we want to do is attach that before we attach this to the actual part of the jig. Okay, so essentially you're done. This can be your stopping point. I'm going to actually finish this off a little bit more, put some nice edges on it, sand it really nice, and actually put some oil on it, just to give a little bit of protection and to keep it from deteriorating over the years. So let me demonstrate how this works to you. So like I've mentioned before, you're going to start with an 8-inch block. This is one I've already used, but you could start with a 2x6, 2x4, anything that's 2x whatever. And make sure this 8-inch piece can fit inside of the groove that we made in our block. So here's how you set this up. First of all, you want to take your fence and bring it over, set your block in there. Now you want to make sure that you have your original edges, just one of them at least, facing and touching the blade. Bring this in and just make it snug, make it so it's not too tight but not too loose either. You don't want to cut into your jig every time, because you'll end up you'll ruin your jig actually after all that. So we'll set that, and we're going to give this a little bit of a run this through. I'm going to lower my blade down. Basically, don't let it touch your blade. Yeah, and we're good. So if you remember, I talked about making sure that when you made this, this would be 12 inches. And here's the reason. When you're cutting through and you get to about this point, your the back of your jig is going to fall off of the table and fall down onto your insert. And on my saw, I have lots of problems with my insert, and most people are still going to have something possibly there. But the idea is when it falls down, you're already coming back up over here, so you're not going to get caught. And that's the idea. You want to keep it flowing, keep running through. So we've got that set. Now we got to set our height. Now obviously you want the height to cut the whole length. And when you're doing this for the first time, you're going to want to set your blade to come up and touch the top board. Once you get it to touch the top board, bring your block back out and then just raise it a little bit slightly. It's going to cut a notch into this top board, and we're going to go ahead and do that. Alright, got that down. Now we have just a very small notch. It's not very big, but that just is going to guarantee we're going to get a complete cut. So here's what you do. We're going to set this in there. Take your block, make sure it goes into the slot, and then you just want to keep a steady hand here and run it through. Now when you run it through, you don't want to push too hard, because once this detaches from the piece you're cutting, you don't want to push it into the blade, causing it to want to kick out or kick back. So you want to make sure you have your riving knife in there. It's very important. You should always have that on your table saw when you're using it. So here we go. I'll show you how fast this is all in real time, not sped up at all. So there we have it. We got 4 usable shims we can use right away. So when you get to about this size, you probably don't want to keep going. You could possibly bring a push stick to use to hold that in, because you can most definitely get more out of that. It's just you start to get in the realm of being unsafe. So I prefer just, you're already using scrap and using up a lot of your scrap. A little bit you're going to have, no problem, just get rid of it. So there's 4 usable shims. Okay, so there we have it. Everything's done. This work turned out really, really good. I was really happy how this worked out. Making shims has always been something I wanted to do. I mean, it sounds such like a petty thing and kind of a small thing, but it's kind of exciting to me to be able to make something that typically you go to the store, spend $2 to $5 to buy a pack of 10 when you have a lot of scrap laying around at the house that you could use this to make shims. And so this is going to enable you to be able to do that. So I hope you were able to follow along. Maybe you made this yourself. If so, let me know in the comments below. Please be sure to give me a thumbs up. And while you're at it, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I do post occasionally things that are different there. Just little tidbits of different things that are going on in my life or different things that are going on in the workshop. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.